All right, give yourself a pat on the back. You've made it through all of the basics for Adobe After Effects. Now, we could end the course here, but what kind of a lackluster ending would that be? Instead, let's use our new knowledge to create a simple but cool looking morph effect in Adobe After Effects. I hope that this will help cement your knowledge and give you an idea of what you can now do with all of your newly acquired skills. But now, before this grass grows past my line of vision, let's jump right into it. Here we are in an empty brand new project, and let's first import the footage that we need to create the morph effect. In your course materials, under the video folder, you will find two clips, one called Walter Ferry Transformation.mp4 and Walter Ferry Transformation-Tobias.mp4. Let's import those two clips into our project. And because I already know we're going to be using a lot of glow and shine and high contrast effect for the morph effect, I'm going to bump my channel depth up from 8 bits per channel to 32, just so that all of the gradients and the glow effects will look a little bit nicer. And now let's grab the Walter Transformation.mp4, the one without -Tobias, and let's drop this onto the new composition icon. Let's check this out. And this is just a very simple clip of Walter coming into the shot with his weird fairy stick, casting a spell onto himself and transforming himself. This is where we will create the actual transform or morph effect. And then while this clip ends with him failing and just walking off the screen all sad, but we're going to make him a bit happy and actually do the transformation effect. Then let's grab the second clip, Walter Transformation-Tobias.mp4, and drop that into the same composition so we can check it out. And this is the second clip I shot from the same location. So I'm essentially pretending to come in from that transformation. So I've kind of started out doing the same movement as Walter did, standing there. But then if you imagine me just morphing in wherever Walter casts his spell, I might be pretty confused. So that's exactly what I'm doing, just giving it a bit of a weird what the hell kind of look. So we're going to kind of blend over to me right here to finish off the morph effect. You will note that this clip actually includes 2 takes, and you can use either one for this. I'm probably just going to use the first one. First, let's prepare a little bit and align these 2 clips time-wise. We want to be able to cut over from Walter casting a spell on himself, over me standing there and getting all confused. Now, if you look at these 2 clips, there are 2 issues that immediately jump out at me. For one, the camera is moving a little bit, so those 2 clips don't actually cut over cleanly. However, we can fix this up quite easily by selecting the top layer, and let's just move it over to the right, maybe 3-4 pixels. 4 pixels actually seems to be right, so that you just don't notice the movement of the camera anymore, and it's not 100%, but it should be good enough for this effect. Now, the second issue is a little bit harder to deal with, and that is if you look at exactly where Walter is standing and where I'm standing, I'm not standing in exactly the same spot. I kind of moved backwards a little bit. And ideally, I would recommend in a situation like this, if you can, simply reshoot. Refilm your scene with the actor in the exact same spot. It's going to save you a whole lot of time and hassle and effort to try to fix this as an effect. But for the purpose of learning how to deal with such situations, because they are going to come up whether you want them or not, we're going to deal with this, and the way we're going to deal with this is a little bit with visual fudgery. We're essentially going to add a whole bunch of particles and glow and shine and other effects on top of this during the morph, so that you can't really see that there's a bit of movement happening just underneath it, and it's just not as obvious that there is a little bit of movement. Now, it won't be perfect, but it should be good enough, so we're just going to kind of fudge over that, so just be aware of that. Now, let's align these 2 layers time-wise. For that, let's select the top layer, the one of Tobias. Press T to reveal the opacity. Let's just bring this down to maybe 50%. And now all I want to do right here, where Walter's kind of whacking that fairy stick onto his head, I'm going to grab the top one and align that so that I'm doing the exact same thing on my Tobias layer. And then they kind of just smile, smile, smile. And probably by round about here is where I definitely would want to be cut over. So right here, I can end my Walter layer. And again, you can just drag the end in or press Alt or Option and right square bracket to trim the end of the Walter layer. And obviously, let's bring the opacity of the top layer back up to 100%. So somewhere here, we want to cut over from Walter to me, but obviously we want to spice this up with some glow, some particles, just to make this look like an actual morph effect. This looks a little bit more interesting. Now, the easiest way you could create anything like a morph effect is essentially just animate the opacity of the Tobias layer on top to kind of come in. So reveal the opacity by pressing T enable the stopwatch icon and start it out at 0%. So we're starting out with Walter. Then maybe let's go forward 10 odd frames. You can just press page down for that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And let's jack the opacity up to 100. So we're really just cross-fading from one to the next, which, you know, is not the worst, but it's not a great effect either. Let's disable the keyframes for the opacity property. Let's jack that back up to 100. And let's extend the Tobias layer to maybe right where Walter kind of hits himself on the head with that fairy stick. So that at that point, up until maybe about here, we've got time to kind of fade those two layers across. And what we now actually need to do, because these ones are fully solid layers, I can't apply effects just to Tobias the way it is. We essentially need to use masks or some way to extract my shape as well as Walter's shape from these two layers, so we can apply things like glow effects or shine effects and kind of blend between those two layers a little bit more organically. And there is no super easy way to do this. What we're going to do is we're going to have to use something called rotoscoping, and that's going to be the topic of our next lesson.